Now, the number that people think that they need to retire, it's gone up 50% in just 4 years, now at $1.5 billion. But one planner at Northwestern Mutual believes the number you should be focusing on is actually your savings rate. John Rowland says, I would much rather have clients save 15% of their income, get a 5% rate of return, than save 1% of their income and get a 15% rate of return. Do you guys often have to refocus your clients to a conservative approach rather than a swing for the fences approach when it comes to returns?
That when I read through that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. Saving 1%, getting 15% on return doesn't sound like that's a good way to go. But, we've done many shows on this topic, and I know every one of these shows that we've done, that number seems to be, that magic number of how much do I need to retire seems to change every time we do the show. So that leads me to a question for you, Dave, because obviously this is more where you operate and this is your lane. But do you think that obviously with the economy and the way prices are, when people are looking and putting money away and saying, man, how much am I going to need for retirement? Obviously, if you go back, 15, 20 years ago, life was a lot different back then. But today, it changes almost year to year, and definitely changes when you have a new administration come in office. When you look at these prices of gas and groceries and things like that, do you think that really weighs on why that number is 1.5 million now versus 1.27 just a few years back?
I think everything in regards to these types of numbers is situational. Let's look back at 2020 for a second. At this time, what were we doing? We were sitting at home. And You know what? I think I'm speaking for more than just myself. I was redoing the inside of my house because we weren't going anywhere. We went to work, but we wouldn't necessarily see clients at work. We would talk to them on the phone. I think it's very situational in terms of how much you need. And I think a lot of things, what that number is based on is what's actually happening, situations that arise. And quite honestly, I think people react more to what happens versus saying, oh boy, I went to the grocery store and I had to pay $35 for a good steak. They don't talk about that, but that's when you talk about rising prices and inflation. That's kind of where it's at. But that topic doesn't come up a lot with me anyway.
Yeah, those costs are ever changing. And, I would totally agree with you because I look at that myself, right? And, how much money am I going to need to retire? And I think when I talk with clients and which we'll talk in a segment coming up here, about a client that I actually met with. But when I talk with clients and they say, geez, I don't know when I can retire. I don't know how much I'm going to need to retire. I agree with you. It's situational, and everybody's situation is a little bit different, right? Because things change in your lifestyle. You're not necessarily driving to work anymore. Everything kind of changes on your needs and your expenses. So it really doesn't matter. I guess, my question, I guess I'm answering it myself. It really doesn't matter as much about how much the groceries are costing or how much gas is costing, because you're not driving to work every day. So you're not filling that tank up, every, couple of weeks and spending, a couple of $100 of fuel cost. It's changing when you go through retirement. Chris, you're obviously a ways away from retirement now, but do you look at things like that as well and say, gosh, I remember when, mom and dad looked at retiring and now I'm going to need X number of dollars to retire. How do you see this?
Well, first of all, my dad has the luxury of 2 pensions, and so that helps him tremendously when it comes to that retirement planning and helping them with the process still with things that they haven't thought about. By proxy of working with you guys, working alongside you guys, I've made them aware of things like RMDs, and it also helps me with planning for myself. Obviously tucking money away, the 401k, the company match, the free money, things like that, and knowing that it's not so much having to go without, because budgeting is a I don't know. I feel like that's a word that a lot of people frown on, but knowing that I do need to save now to plan for the future is both a challenge and something that I'm aware of. Sometimes I do better at it than I should. Sometimes I do much worse at it than I should. But I think it's having that discipline, and that's something that I need to continue to work on. But as you pointed out, I still have, without giving away my age, I still have a decade or two before it really becomes a situation. But it goes to show there's no time like the present to really get serious about retirement planning, right?
Yeah, exactly. I look at that and I'm like, I can honestly say I don't know that I've ever said, geez, you know what, I'm going to need like $1.5 million to retire when it comes time to retire. Even back, 20, 25, 30 years ago when I was working in obviously much younger, I don't think I really looked at it and said, boy, the way things are going now, I'm going to need $1 million to retire. I think that $1 million is a magic number that everybody loves to hear. Hey, I'm a millionaire. But you're right, Chris. I totally agree. Budgeting and preparing for it now versus waiting until your retirement date is around the corner. I had a client in last week, and I've been working with him for probably a couple of months. And my first appointment with him was, you know what? I think I'm going to work another couple of years. He's turning 65. April he did, and he comes in. Schedule appointment comes in. I'm like, oh, well, here we go again. We're going to talk about it. And he said, they let me go. So there's a situation where his plans were a couple more years, and boom, now he's retired. And if he would have, not properly prepared, he could be in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, it just goes to show occasionally it is taken out of our hands. The big number, obviously, if you've got $1.5 million or whatever, you're probably going to be set up, but it really depends on what you're going to be spending every year in retirement. Knowing that, it comes down to individual circumstances. I know that sounds like a vague answer, and truth be told, it is. But you want to figure out what it is going to look like for you in your retirement. That is the retirement that you want, and that is where having a plan put in place to take care of that comes into play. The team at America's Retirement Headquarters, they can help you craft that plan with the Retirement Team Action Plan. Just find out more. You can give a call, 419-794-3030, or you can go to the website as well, and that is at arhq.com.